Here we are on the morning of the 27th, all packing up after a wonderful night's sleep. As you can see, it's going to be another brilliant sunny day.
I'm a traveling spirit, I've seen many shores.
Well, we roll out of camp on what was our last night in the Simpson Desert proper. And it's not long before we encounter our first dune for the day.
And even though no one can tell, I still feel that I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm alone. Leave me stranded, I know how to handle it all on my own. On my own. I have learned that no one else can carry this load. It's a train where I'm the only.
Now, when the WA line and the rig road and the Carlton track all met, the WAA line stopped and the rig road continued. And as you can see by all the corrugations and washouts, it's the sand dunes have been, tracks up the sand dunes have been topped with clay, which was done way back when they were drilling for oil and needed to get heavy construction trucks up here. So they used to dig out the in between the sand dunes, which were clay-based, clay pans, and top them sand dunes. And as you can see, they're quite eroded. In some places the sand has started to reclaim them because they're not maintained any further. So we are on the rig road heading to the French line. As you can see on these sides, the sand dunes are starting to reclaim what is theirs. Morning tea.
Looking for a reason, driven by the heart, fighting for a season, but sadness fall apart. Tell me not to worry, tell me to be strong, be my true reminder of where my love belongs. We'll be cutting edge.
The Macari airstrip is located on the junction of the WAA line and the rig road. This airstrip was used extensively during the 1960s, but now is just a reminder of days gone by. Close by is the grave of one Yaroslav Pakenik, whose wish it was to be buried in the desert he loved. He was much respected by the exploration crews who came to depend on his ability to keep them supplied in this remote location.
Bring it on tonight. Let me take you higher, reaching for the sky.
After days and days of eye strain trying to find a camel against the camouflaging background of the desert dunes, we finally stumble across one, only a few metres from the road. Surprisingly, he is on his own, maybe a buck that has been ostracised from his herd.
Flipping hearts around, we'll be
There we are now about to turn onto the French line.
baby, hold on. Bring it on. We'll be running the shore.
changed colour since we've been here. He was really yellowish to start with.
Bring it on, bring it on. Bring it on, bring it on. Bring it on. We'll be running the show. Bring it on. Bring it on. Bring it
It won't be long before we arrive at the Pooney Bore. This is an artesian bore that has created an isolated oasis in the desert and become a haven for wildlife in this area. The bore was sunk by teams during the oil exploration years of the Simpson Desert. As the years went by, flow from the bore allowed a substantial amount of hot water to reach the surface, creating a large lake. The borehead now allows some water to be released from the basin to sustain the wildlife that has become reliant on this area.
We've now exited the Simpson Desert. As you can see, there's no sand dunes in any site. It's all flat, plain country. We're on our way to Dalhousie Springs, where we can hopefully have a nice dip in their hot thermal pools.
Australia is home to the largest artesian system in the world, known as the Great Artesian Basin. This basin covers more than 20% of the Australian continent, has around 600 artesian spring complexes in 12 major groups. Springs can range in size from only a few metres across to large clusters of freshwater pools known as supergroups. One of these supergroups is in the Mt.Dare National Park, and it contains around 60 of these springs.
This flat area here, off to our left now, is apparently called the Springs Creek Delta. A really flat area where there's plenty of water, and apparently the road through it is permanently closed at the moment, so...
We got water up here. Looks like a bit of water. So we're just stopping down here, just down over the cliff. Yep, copy that. Unbelievable. We'll just ease in.
Well, not everybody was pleased to see us. So we stopped and observed this guy, and it wasn't long before he hightailed it across the road. Dalhousie Springs, whoa, a welcome sight after 3 days in the desert. You can only imagine how relieved early travellers would have been when they stumbled across this.
Having to wait?
Yes. I know, silly bitch.
The water here finds its way to the surface through fissures and flows into a small lake where it cools to a soakable temperature of around 38 degrees. The spring is home to a handful of endemic fish species that attack any old flesh from your body in a soothing sort of way. Then it's on to what's left of the Dalhousie ruins, then on to camp and refuel at Mt.Dare. Dalhousie Springs Station was a pastoral lease that once operated as a cattle station in South Australia. Dalhousie and other surrounding leases were acquired by the Australian Government in 1985 to make up the Widjara National Park. The property was situated 125 kilometres north of Unadilla and 131 kilometres southeast of Apatula. The fleeting Fink River passes for a distance of 48 kilometres through the property with several semi-permanent waterholes before petering out well short of Lake Eyre further to the southeast. At around 1889, the station was stocked with around 5,000 head of cattle and 130 horses. Essington Lewis, son of the Honourable John Lewis, who held the lease from 1895 to 1931, also spent time working on the property. The property was abandoned in 1925. Dalhousie Station was later amalgamated with other surrounding stations such as Blood Creek, Mt.Dare and Federal. These stations were run under an umbrella of the Dalhousie Pastoral Company, managed by Edwin Lowe until November 1985. It was apparent after more than a century of pastoralism, the mould springs with natural biological, geological and cultural significance had become degraded. In an effort to conserve the mould springs and their valuable ecosystems, the 7,769 square kilometre station was purchased by the government and dedicated as Widjara National Park. During all this time, the property was stocked with sheep, Angora goats, horses, camels and cattle. In particular, Charles Bagot bred horses. An old racecourse is situated a short distance from the homestead, indicating that those who lived there and their neighbours regularly attended picnic races and enjoyed a social lifestyle. Buildings were built sometime between 1872 and 1885. This small settlement consisted of a homestead, a shed, workmen's quarters, blacksmith shop and the stockyards, with the homestead thought to be the earliest structure. The fence was erected to protect the building from being undermined by rabbits. The date palms you see are quite controversial. It was thought that the Afghan camellias introduced them to the Australian outback. However, letters by the Honourable John Lewis mention his involvement in bringing the dates to the region.
Let's say it's a boat that we're all in together, that barely stays afloat while we all discuss the weather. How long can we all go on before we change our ways? How long till the break of dawn? How long till it days? How long till it days? Let's say it's a bed we all know is on fire. Pharaohs spin our heads, but no one calls out liar. How long can we all go on before
the windmill.
Okay, unloaded the furthest pumps up, and diesel is back there where the other vehicles spoke.
Stop.
As we pulled into Mt.Dare, it was time to enjoy a refreshing ale. As we did this, I think I could hear the Prado at camp doing just the same thing after it too was refueled. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us the thumbs up and a like, and subscribe for more adventures into the Australian backyard with John and Liz. Travel safe and don't let the dust settle. Next time on Overland Australia Adventures, we make it to the start of the binge track, find a lake in the middle of nowhere, find a windmill with no fan, and find a very rare tree again in the middle of nowhere.